Good day, Professor Mel and classmates. I am tasked to discuss one of the four models of corporate responsibility, mainly discussed in the book Corporate Social Responsibility and Legitimacy, written by James J. Brummer. The first model is the classical model. Now, what is a classical model? Proponents of this model argues that a society is best served by a variety of institutions, in institutions such as the government, the business sectors, and the likes. Now, each of which serve a particular function. Now, according to this theory, the primary function of corporations should be profit-making rather than civic. The main goal of corporation is maximizing the profit. So it is profit-centered. It's not more on what they can do to the society, but rather on what they can give or what they can get from the product they are selling, or if they're in a corporation, what profit can they get, and maximizing it the most. Now, according to Coase, who wrote a book in 1960, if property rights were properly outlined, financial intermediaries were zero and there was no wealth effect. The market's function would be sufficient to achieve optimal allocation of resources. The market balance would benefit the entire community, and companies would be unnecessary in this hypothetical situation. Now, the presence of transaction costs and market imperfections has aided the emergence of businesses. Now, these ideas about the imperfection of markets and the involvement of businesses that take part in them are the decisive reason for proponents of classical theory to claim that the only goal for companies is to maximize their profits. In a genuinely free market, a corporate that dramatically increases its profit theoretically ensures the optimal value of wealth for the community, benefiting all entities that are a component of it. Now, classical theory believes that the main goal of managers is to act in the interests of their shareholders while not breaking the law. In short, the main purpose, the main goal of the managers is to do whatever the best that he can to satisfy, to give more, to increase, or to expand the interest of their shareholders, but on the condition or the premise that they will not break the law. They are disciplined by the prospect of having to answer to stockholders and the board of directors. It is assumed that the main source of classical model is the belief that the individual is the center of a value system. People are seeking their fulfillment and take rational actions to boost their sense of satisfaction. Now, say for example, I have enough money. I would go to a fast food chain and then buy whatever is offered in the menu to buy only what can satisfy my hunger. Although I have more budget for me to satisfy my hunger, but those extra money to buy another or all of those options in the menu, but rather just buy whatever will satisfy my hunger. Now, in that case, I would be happy and satisfied with the food, and at the same time, the food that I paid for, the company will be getting a profit from it. So two of us would be happy, and at the same time, the company also profits from it. Now, I'd like to connect the idea of Adam Smith, which he called the invisible hand, in the illustration I have just stated. Now, the invisible hand is a metaphor for the unseen forces that move the free market economy. These invisible hands are the individuals operating together in mutually satisfying or profitable exchanges, as what I have just shared, that I paid for one dish and that I am satisfied with it. And at the same time, me paying the dish, the company profits from it. Now, it leads to the most efficient economic system, according to this theory. Now, through individual self-interest and freedom of production and consumption, the best interests of society as a whole are fulfilled. Now, the constant interplay of individual pressures on market supply and demand causes the natural movement of prices and trade flow. Now, we say invisible hand. What is the invisible hand? The invisible hand is a metaphor, as I've seen a while ago, as the unseen forces that move the free market economy. Now, in order to fulfill their institutional responsibility to society, meaning the corporations, they should limit any social activities that add costs and reduce the profits. Again, the main goal is to maximize the profit. Now, here are the questions. What about the ethical responsibility of the classical model? Well, the ethical responsibility or obligation is negative. It's negative because it only tells you, using this model, just don't break the law. Other than that, which will be discussed, I believe, by some of the reporters, that in corporate social responsibility, part of it, and I think one of the most important part of social responsibility is ethical responsibility. But in classical model, what we can see is that the ethical responsibility is that they just don't break the law, and that's it. A while ago, I was saying that one of the institutions in this classical model, institutions that really move, that really is part of the components, is that the government. In this model, the government should function to promote activities and laws that protect or benefit the public. There are three primary institutions in a modern economic system: the market, the firm, and the state or the government. Now, the first one brings about the following ones. The market's inefficiency favored the appearance of firms and the need for the state to set the rules of the game. According to economic theory, the balance between supply and demand in markets lead to an efficient resource, which we call invisible hand. This balance should maximize market profit, also maximizing the benefit for society. Now, let me bring you to the reasons why proponents of classical model believe in its efficiency. Now, shareholders benefit because they receive a higher amount of profit. That's one good thing, according to the proponents of classical model. One advantage of it is that shareholders benefit because they receive a higher amount of profit. When a firm invests money for social reasons, it lessens the shareholders' value. As discontented shareholders share or sell their stock, its value falls, and the company has little funds for future development. Now, the second advantage of this model, according to the proponents, is given the ideal nature of it is the customer's benefit because prices remain cheap. How does it go? When, say for example, the company profit or maximize its profit, then automatically another good thing about it is that customers will benefit from it. According to it, ideally, the prices will go down, the prices will become cheaper, and therefore it will benefit the customers or the clients. Now, thirdly, employees are also pleased since increased revenues allow the company to grow, resulting in more employment, increased salary, and other economic advantages or perks. Lastly, because these successful entrepreneurs and their employees all pay taxes to the government, which further accomplishes its social functions like training, pavements or roads, welfare care, and so on, society as a whole benefit. Now, the government also performs in the best interest of society by establishing the rules that these businesses must follow. Now, let me now discuss the perceived weaknesses of classical model. Several empirical studies have compared the sales and efficiency of businesses that do not participate in social activities to those that do. Whereas the findings of these studies are varied, the overall conclusion is that efficiency and profit growth are unrelated to social enterprise or lack thereof. Now, following a thorough examination of this research, Brummer asserts that when management teams respond specifically to the needs and individual interests other than shareholders, they do not necessarily harm the company's economic interests. That's something to think about. Now, some social events such as RI or REI's effort to promote health do not necessarily reduce profitability. However, some social activities do. Now, of course, questions regarding sacrificing profits in the social interest apply beyond the environmental sphere or other sphere or other influences. The academic debate over the legality of offering profits in the public interest appears to have begun in 1932 with the opposing articles, and you can read that in the book of Dodd and Burley, who wrote a book in 1932 in a Harvard Law Review Symposium on an article entitled "For Whom Are Corporate Managers Trustees?" The debate in economics began more recently with Milton Friedman's 1970 article, "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits," in the New York Times Magazine. Since then, the debate has continued and CSR has received considerable attention from scholars and the public, especially in environmental protection. The prevailing view among most economists and business scholars is that corporate directors have a fiduciary duty to maximize profits for shareholders. While this view underlies many economic models of firm behavior, its legal basis is not very strong. Although supportive of a duty to maximize profits for shareholders, the judicial record also leaves room for the possibility that firms may sacrifice profits in the public interests. Now, for those who would like to study more on this classical model, here are the references written by Brummer, by Coase, by Dodd and Merrick, and by Friedman Milton. Once again, I'd like to say thank you and hope that you learned some pointers about the classical models in corporate social responsibility.